Alright, so there's a little under 1 month until the UCAT testing period officially starts on the 1st of July, and depending on how prepared you might be feeling for the test, you might be shaking in your boots in anxiety or feeling eager and ready to go for the test. Regardless of how you might be feeling though, I'm here in this video to give you guys some advice on the best ways you should be spending your time in the last month leading up to the UCAT so that you can enter test day feeling confident and ready to smash the test. My name is Emil and I'm a first year medical student studying at Monash University in Melbourne, Australia, which means that I graduated from high school and I did the UCAT last year. I scored a 3310, which put me in the 99th percentile and got me a bunch of interviews to a lot of medical schools in Australia without even needing my high school results. I've already made a bunch of videos on this channel already about how I approached each of the subtests and the UCAT test in general, so make sure to check out this playlist if you haven't already. Anyway, in this video, I'm going to be giving you guys some advice on the best ways you should be spending your time in the last month leading up to the UCAT, depending on how much time you might have spent on practicing already from the UCAT Noob to the UCAT Pro. As always, if you guys enjoy the content, please do leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel as it really helps me to grow and keep making this type of content. To all the UCAT noobs out there, never fear because you won't be a noob for long. You might have only just started thinking about the UCAT and you might not know anything about answering any of the questions in any of the subtests, and you might have not even tried to attempt a practice exam at this point, and you probably can't even wrap your head around the timings for the test in general. Do not worry though, because 1 month is a perfect time to start preparing for the test, and I know plenty of people who've started preparing with even less time, like 2 weeks or so, and scoring in the 99th percentile as well. The first thing I recommend you do at this stage is watch some videos online or read some guides about what the structure of the UCAT is actually like, what the timings are for each subtest, and how you might want to be approaching each of the questions in each of the subtests. Doing this will mean that the UCAT seems a little less daunting, and when you first start doing practice, it won't necessarily feel as scary to do. A better place to start than ever would be my channel and all of my UCAT guides for each of the subtests, but there are also other great channels out there like Karma Medic and online resources such as the Student Forum that have guides for the UCAT. Once you've done this, I highly recommend that you get onto answering questions as soon as possible. When you answer, first start by doing questions untimed so that you can get an understanding of the thought processes that you need to answer questions correctly so that they don't feel too overwhelming. One thing that makes the UCAT a lot easier is that you actually know the types of questions essentially that will be coming up on the test before you even sit the test on test day. Because of this, doing untimed questions first lets you to solidify your understanding of the questions that will come up, and that will mean that you're more ready to tackle any question that might come up on test day and also in your practice exams. After this stage, you've hopefully come close to comprehending the way you'd want to be answering all of the questions in all of the subtests, and this is when I recommend that you start moving on to doing some timed practice. If an exam seems too overwhelming at this stage, that's okay. Maybe start by doing some timed drills or some subtest mocks to get an idea of how the timing might change how you want to approach questions or how you might struggle with certain parts of the test. By doing lots and lots of these drills and timed subtest mocks, you'll get closer and closer to the timings that you actually need for test day. Now, the next thing I absolutely have to emphasize to all of you UCAT noobs out there is that you must do a full UCAT exam before you feel like you're even ready to do one. This is so important in my opinion because doing practice exams is 100% the thing that helped me improve my score the most, and it's definitely the thing that will help you also improve your score and get used to the test conditions in the first place. There's no point just doing drills because you'll feel like your improvement will plateau really quickly. You have to do exams so that you can get a feel of what it's like flowing from one subtest to the next, and also training your mental capacity to survive the whole 2-hour-long test. For all of you guys starting around 1 month before the test, I recommend that you do your first practice exam maybe 1.5 weeks in, and then you should aim to do at least 3 to 4 practice exams before test day so that you feel ready and confident. Okay, so let's move on now to the UCAT intermediates. You guys probably have a general idea of what it takes to answer the questions in each of the subtests, and you might have done a lot of practice untimed, and you might have done maybe 1 or 2 mocks, but you might not have been very impressed by your scores in them, and you might be feeling a little bit scared to do more. My first piece of advice to the UCAT intermediates is that you must start grinding the UCAT exams as soon as possible. In my opinion, the biggest difference between the UCAT pros and the UCAT intermediates is the amount of practice exams they may or may not have done. You'll often find that once you do your your third or fourth practice exam, your performance improves drastically. For me, the difference between my second and third exams was a difference of about 10 percentile points. It's really important to take this step in doing the practice exams so that you can feel more competent and apply the skills that you've learned from doing untimed and timed drills. My other tip is to really make sure you try to undo at this stage any bad habits you might have picked up from doing timed practice or untimed drills. Now, these habits can be things like in verbal reasoning, reading the line once and then skipping all the way back again. In DM and QR, it can be not writing down enough information. And in AR, it can be trying to use the answer options to try and find the answer in set A or set B. All these habits are definitely things you'd want to unlearn because they will definitely slow you down and reduce your accuracy in the long run when answering questions. Since you might not have done many exams at this point, like 1 or 2, it's much easier to undo these habits than someone who might have done 4 or 5 exams. As a UCAT intermediate, you probably want to complete between 5 to 10 practice exams before your actual test day so that you're feeling really comfortable and confident with your test taking skills. Alright, so now let's move on to the UCAT pros. So the UCAT pros are probably people who have spent a little bit longer preparing for the exam. You probably finished revising the subtests a long time ago, and you've probably already done 3 to 4 practice exams. However, even though you've done 3 to 4 practice exams, your biggest worry might be that you're not feeling confident about your performance in those exams, or that you feel like your performance is plateauing and you can't improve any further. The first thing I have to say to the UCAT pros is that you should shove your self-doubt aside. Even if you might be stuck at a particular percentile in doing your UCAT exams, there's nothing to say that you can't improve and keep improving to get to a really high percentile that you'd be happy with. You should definitely keep in mind at this stage that often the company exams that you might be doing are often much harder than the UCAT itself, and also the percentile ranking system will be harder because people who are using the companies are also people who are practicing actively for the UCAT. The second piece of advice I have for you UCAT pros is that you should try to stray away from perfectionism and focus on the stuff that you know will be more likely to appear on the exam. I know that often when doing questions in UCAT practice, you can get these questions that seem ridiculously hard for the test, and it's too easy to just get caught up on those and ignore the fact that you might be taking way too long for a question that is much easier. The point I'm trying to make here is that you should focus on the high yield UCAT questions. You shouldn't worry if you got a ridiculously hard QR question wrong, but you should worry if in the same subtest you got a question right, but you spent double the time that you needed to. This leads me on to some other advice, which is that most questions you're getting wrong should fit into 3 categories, which you should identify and try to work on. Ask yourself one of these 3 questions. Was it a ridiculously hard question or a silly mistake? Was there a mistake in understanding, or was there a mistake in the timing of the question? More often than not, the majority of the questions you get wrong will actually fit into one of these 3 questions. With the first one, where it was ridiculously hard or a silly mistake, you should probably not worry too much about these questions because it happens to the best of us. However, if you're making a lot of silly mistakes, you probably want to check up on that because that might be actually an issue in timing that's disguised. With the second one, where it's an issue with understanding, you definitely want to go back to the question and try to re-understand how you get the answer. And in addition, you might want to do untimed questions of the same type so that you know that you can actually reapply that understanding to other questions of the same type or same strategy. With the third type of mistake, where it might be an issue with timing, you definitely want to check that your understanding and method to answering the questions is good. And then if that's the case, then you probably want to do more timed drills to make sure that you're solidifying how fast you're answering these questions with accuracy and confidence. By really aggressively putting the questions you get wrong into one of these 3 categories, you can get a much better idea of where you might be lacking in each of the UCAT subtests, and then you can also direct your practice so that you can answer these questions better next time you do them. Doing all of these things will help you to get out of that feeling of plateauing when you're doing 3 or 4 exams, and will mean that you're improving consistently while you're practicing as well. As a UCAT pro who might have already done 3 to 4 exams 1 month before the test, I recommend that you try to finish the week before the test with about 10 to 15 UCAT exams done. This will mean that you're feeling really confident and knowing that you've done all the the preparation that you can to be ready for the UCAT. Regardless of whether you're a UCAT pro or a UCAT noob, I'm sure there's plenty of information in this video that will help you out to approach your last month of practice before the UCAT. If you haven't already, make sure to check out my UCAT crash course playlist, as it has advice for each of the subtests and general advice for the whole test. If you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel, or leave a comment down below with any questions you might have. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.